there's a sun golden dress there, so light is getting through somehow. So it's just a really interesting word picture.
Welcome to the College of Valor, where we empower truth seekers with the art of reason. Hope is the motivation, truth is the goal. Everyday valor is the practice, better living is the result.
Hi, guys. Welcome back to College of Valor. We hope that you are doing well. I am here with my dad, Kurt. Dad, what are we talking about today?
So today we're going to talk about a paradigm that I have found to be extremely useful in my life, and I'm hoping that it may be useful for others, or some variant on it could be very useful for others. And that paradigm is that there is a life culture and there is a death culture. And when we're making decisions about how we should live our lives, some decisions, some things obviously lead to life. That's good. Those are things that usually are about love and knowledge and wisdom and light. And then there's some things that lead to darkness. They're rarely as obvious. Often, the death culture poses as good. And so it can be very deceptive. But I wanted to explore that in some depth today because like I said, I think it's very, very valuable, and it can really help us to live better lives. If we can make decisions that lead toward life and love and light and understanding, hey, that's all good stuff.
Yeah, I love that.
There's a song that I really, really like. It's by the Grey Havens. It's one of my favorite songs ever. And I wish we could play the song, but I don't have the right to play the song. But we can at least read you the lyrics, and you can go listen to the song, which would be great because that would help the songwriters and performers out. The songwriter is David Christian Radford, and it was produced by Ben Shive back in 2018. And the Grey Havens, that's the band, and the song is called Three Birds in Babylon. Now, this song is so cool, but it is very symbolic. It's allegorical. And when you first listen to it, when you're listening to the song itself play, it just kind of has a haunting sort of a melody line that kind of pulls you in. And I think, at least for me, at first I was asking, what is this about? Right? That's really what the song does, is it says, what is this about? And then I listened to the lyrics over and over and over, and I noticed subtle changes from verse to verse to verse. Even the chorus subtly changes as the song progresses. And I began to understand what it was about a little bit. Then when I read the lyrics, I was like, oh, I'm finally beginning to get it. These people did such a great, great job with this song. So, man, accolades to them. I really, really like it. But this is kind of the theme song for the discussion today. Lydia, do you have the lyrics in front of you? Maybe you would like to read it to us.
Yeah, sure. The lyrics are deep in the heart of stone. The walls are cold and scarred. Where the phantom shadow figures are, down by the gates, they're saying a lark. She comes at the break of dawn. The rays fall on her dress. She used to be a silhouette deep in the heart of stone. And every day she comes to say, look up, look at the dawn. Yes, I escaped the shadows once. I listened to his son. They say, look how she goes. She gave herself away. Her crown, her throne, like a fool, like a renegade. Now wasting her days and her better youth on tricks and charades, but we see right through. Look how she goes. Deep in the heart of stone, no fire, no flame, no spark can overtake or tame the dark. Of freedom, they're very fond. Sing along, 3 cheers for Babylon. She goes at the break of dawn in that same sun golden dress. She's waiting for the silhouette, then sang the nightingale. And every day she comes to say, look up, look at the dawn. Yes, I escaped the darkness once. I heard and sang along, but no one sang along. They say, look how she goes. She gave herself away. A desert rose. What a delusional runaway. Got stars in her hair, walks on the moon. It's a moonlight mirage, but we see right through. Look how she goes. And down by the gates, a dove sang with the girl. And suddenly the song heard the morning call. They held with their eyes the dawn, and three cheers for Babylon sounded strange as they turned to say, look how she goes. She gave herself away. No heart of stone. We've been fools. We've been renegades. Now wasting our days and the better youth on these tricks and charades. Now we see right through. Look how she goes. She gave herself away. Look how she goes. Look how she goes. Hoo-hoo. What does it mean, Dad?
Well, I would like to hear more about what the songwriter believes that it means. And I actually did look up it. He did an interview where he kind of explained where he was coming from. The beauty of real art is that every individual can have a private interpretation that can be meaningful. And this song allows for that. It doesn't box us in completely. So my take on the song is in parallel with the songwriters, but not exactly the same. But I guess that's the way it's going to be, right? And for each viewer, listener out there, I invite you to have your own take. But I wanted to explore the song a little bit because, in my view, this song is about the ways of life versus the ways of death. This song is about that to me. Now, to the original songwriter, he also pulled in the logical argument that something is either, well, if you're wondering if someone is telling the truth or not, there are only three choices, right? Either that person is lying, or that person is a lunatic, or that person is telling the truth. Those are really the only three choices we get when we're trying to sort out if someone is speaking truth or fiction. And he based the three verses of this song on that paradigm. And it's in there. You can see it if you look for it. But I really look at it so much more as finding truth versus deception, which I think are the ways of life versus the ways of death. So, Lydia, why don't we just kind of break down some of the highlights of the song and jump in. I'm going to start, but you jump in and tell me what you think as well, because everyone's going to see something a little bit different here. The first thing I want to point out is the heart of stone. That's always been symbolic of whether or not you're sensitive to truth, whether or not you're malleable, whether you can listen, comprehend, and understand, or if you're set in your ways and if you've closed off to other ideas. So in the heart of stone, people think they're right and they're kind of closed off to other ideas. And they say that the walls are cold and scarred, and that just shows how life beats us up and kind of tries to give us hearts of stone, backs us into the corner so we get defensive. And then it talks about phantoms and shadows and that mystery, like, wait a minute, something's amiss here. And then we get a lark that's singing. And I think the lark represents the lunatic. You know, if someone says, well, that's a lark, it kind of means a joke or foolishness, right? But here's this gal. And, you know, they keep talking about her being a silhouette, but the rays fall on her dress deep in the heart of stone. It's like, oh, a little light peeked through, just a little bit. But then you have her peer group, her old friends. And she calls out to them and she says, come and look at the dawn. Look what I've seen. But they say, oh, look how she goes. She gave herself away. They're making fun of her, right? She's a fool. She's a renegade. What does she think she's doing? She's not towing the line. We all have this figured out, and she is not towing the line. And then they say, she's just trying to trick us. We see right through this. We're smarter than she is. Look how she goes. So that's the first verse and chorus. Lydia, you want to try the second one?
Yeah, so the second one is kind of misplaced freedom, I would say, or maybe a deceptive sense of freedom
Yeah, what's the
that
lyrics
the
say?
so it says, deep in the heart of stone, no fire, no flame, no spark can overtake or tame the dark. Of freedom, they're very fond. Sing along, three cheers for Babylon. She goes at the break of dawn in that same sun golden dress. You know, she's waiting for the silver silhouette, then sang the nightingale. So those lyrics to me, my interpretation of them has been that, you know, they're kind of continuing to make fun of her, this lark that has seen the dawn, that, you know, has light just bouncing off of her dress, and then it, you know, the dress grows brighter. At the same time, they kind of seem to be um the writer seems to be emphasizing the dark, you know, that it's not just the normal dark that we see, because no fire, no flame, no spark can overtake it,
Right.
which means that there's more going on there than just physical darkness like we would see at nighttime outside.
Powerful.
And at the same time, there's a sun golden dress there, you know, so light is getting through somehow. So it's just a really interesting word picture.
You know, I wanted to point out where you started before I interrupted and said, read it. You said, a freedom they're very fond. And you said, it seems like it's a false freedom of some sort because we're talking about darkness and we're talking about charades and we're talking about confusion. But of freedom, we're very fond in Babylon. Maybe I should explain what Babylon means because it is very symbolic and it's an ancient symbol that goes back for many thousands of years. And it comes from ancient history.
Mm-hmm.
And what Babylon represents is enslavement and being taken away from your freedoms, taken away from the liberties that you have. So that's the
Yeah.
general symbolism of Babylon. It's also used to represent confusion and lies
And
and
indoctrination.
indoctrination, right? So that's what Babylon normally represents. And when I'm talking about actual historical things that happened between countries thousands and thousands of years ago, and from that, this symbolism emerged. So that's what Babylon is. So whenever we're talking about a freedom we're very fond, sing along, three cheers for Babylon. It's a dead giveaway if you know what Babylon means. They're saying, we are fond of freedom. Hooray for Babylon. What they're actually saying is, we think we're free, but we're enslaved and confused.
Right.
But they
Yeah.
don't know that
It's
they're
so
enslaved and
interesting.
confused.
Babylon back in the day would, you know, lay siege to cities, and they would bring people back from those cities to Babylon, and they would indoctrinate them, usually over about 3 years, where they would be taught Babylonian propaganda and
Right.
Babylonian history, Babylonian literature, the language. They would eat only Babylonian food. A lot of times their names were changed as well over this period of 3 years. And they would be indoctrinated into the culture of Babylon. They would become Babylonians over the course of these years that they lived there. So they were indoctrinated into this mindset. And I think that that's part of what this passage is saying, just that they ended up finding freedom, misplaced freedom within that indoctrinated mindset.
You know, remember the name of the song is The Three Birds of Babylon. So far, we've talked about the lark and now the nightingale. And I'm not sure if the nightingale represents lies, but I think it might. I think that the Nightingale obviously has a reputation of having a beautiful song, a beautiful voice that entices people into the darkness to find the beauty of the song, kind of like the will o' the wisp that leads you astray. So I get the feeling that the lark stood for lunatic and the nightingale stands for deception, for lies that draw you
Right.
away, because it matches what we were just talking about with the confusion of false freedom that's also there.
Right.
I like it too because in the first verse we see charades and we see that some sun hit her dress, and then in the second verse it says, "What does it call her dress?"
A sun
Same
golden dress.
sun golden dress. It's like it has its own light now, not just that the sun hit it, and it's not a silhouette anymore. Okay, third verse. Lydia, let's do this one together. The first thing I want to point out though is at the end of the chorus, the gal who's inviting everyone to look at the dawn says, "I heard and sang along, but no one sang along." She's trying to make the point that she has found something and she's trying to get other people to sing with her, to enjoy what this wonderful thing that she's found, but no one will join her in the song. So that's kind of the way that that ends. But then they make fun of her again. Look how she goes. She gave herself away. A desert rose. I mean, she was dried out but beautiful. She was once almost lifeless like a desert, but she was blossoming, right? But then they say, what a delusional runaway. They're kind of saying she had it all. She was popular. She was beautiful. She was kind of, the leader of the pack, so to speak. But now look, they say that she has stars in her hair and she's walking on the moon and she's just ridiculous. And they can see right through her. But then the third verse starts.
And down by the gates, a dove sang with the girl, and suddenly the song heard the morning call. They held with their eyes the dawn, and three cheers for Babylon sounded strange as they turned to say,
Okay,
"Look how
pause
she
there.
goes, blah, blah, blah."
Pause there because this is critical. Same scene, different day, different bird. This time it's a dove. And dove represents peace and truth that sets you free, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's what the dove represents. And the dove sang with the girl, truth sang with the girl. And suddenly her friends saw it for the first time. They saw the dawn. And their cheers for their lifestyle, for their own deceived lifestyle, sounded very strange because they've realized that they're the goofy ones. They're the ones that
Mm.
missed it, not the gal they've been making fun of this whole time. So, how's the chorus go?
Look how she goes. She gave herself away. No heart of stone. And before that it says it sounded strange when they turned to say, "Look how she goes. She gave herself away. No heart of stone." We've been fools. We've been renegades. Now wasting our days and the better youth on these tricks and charades. Now we see right through. Look how she goes. She gave herself away. Look how she goes. Look how she goes. So in
Okay.
that last bit, they're like, wow, look how she goes.
I get the image that they didn't necessarily join her in the song. It's just that her light shined upon them and they saw themselves for what they were and they turned and walked away.
Mm-hmm.
They stayed in Babylon. I mean, that's very, very sad to me. At the same time that I can celebrate that the desert rose, saw the dawn, and became a full human instead of a silhouette, got away from the deceptions of Babylon, sang with the dove of truth and love, right?
Mm-hmm.
At the same time, we can celebrate that. We see the others who turned away from her, which means they left her alone. And they turned away with full recognition now that they were the ones who had been deceived, not her. But they still turned away and walked away.
Hmm. Yeah.
It just goes to show how powerful peer pressure, lifestyle, expectations, a way of being, how powerful it can be, how much we can get stuck in a rut to the point that we can't get out, that we won't get out. Even when we see that we're in the rut and we see there's a better way, we're like, yeah, but I'm here, not there.
Hmm.
I want to say that you can get stuck in very deep ruts, but there is always a way out. In this song, it seems to me at least, they recognize the error of their ways, but they didn't get out. But maybe they will. I'm going to add another
Right.
verse, a fourth verse. Now that they've seen the light, they heard the dove, and they've seen what happens. The silhouette was gone, and there's this beautiful whole person standing there calling to them, come on, you can be a part of this too. They turned away, but it doesn't mean they have to stay away. Maybe they'll ponder it. Maybe
Hmm.
they too will leave the heart of stone and see the dawn and sing with the dove. Why not?
Right. Yeah. The thing that I really love about the song as well is that the girl in the song, she's relentless. She's going to
Mm,
them every single day and she keeps saying, "Look what I found. You guys will never believe this," you know? And she keeps inviting them. So
yeah.
to me, even though they still have yet to turn from their ways, it's a very hopeful ending because you can see with each verse, she's just finding the chink in their armor a little bit more and um they are thinking, oh, maybe I should check this out. So I like it.
So there's an ancient proverb, and I've actually quoted it or paraphrased it. I haven't quoted it. I've paraphrased it in previous episodes. And it seems to me that that's what this song is all about. The song is kind of an allegory for this old proverb. And the proverb is there's a way that seems right to people, but in the end, it is the ways of death. Now, that's what this episode is all about, that there are ways of life and there are ways of death. And it's not always obvious which is which, as we can see, right? Her friends didn't realize that they were stuck in the ways of death with their hearts of stone in their false freedom, which was actually captivity of Babylon. They didn't recognize that because they had been deceived, right? But there is also a way of light, a way of love, a way of life. And, the main protagonist of the song, the heroine of the song, found it and tried to share it. I want to point out that some people may feel like this is an oversimplification, that life isn't so obviously um, good or bad, might be one way to say it, or that not everything is a way of life versus a way of death. And I'm sympathetic to that viewpoint because quite often we do oversimplify life, and that's very dangerous. Matter of fact, it leads to some real problems. And in this episode, we're going to touch on that now. And then in the next episode, we're going to go a lot deeper to try to reveal more to you what the ways of life are and what the ways of death are. But before we go into the rest of life versus death, let's talk about the idea of oversimplification. And I guess the first thing I'd like to say is life usually isn't that binary. Now, binary obviously is a mathematical term. It became a computer term. It means ones and zeros, on, off, black, white, right? That's what binary means. And so usually life is not that binary. It's not so obviously on or off, right or wrong. Um, we had some words that kind of illustrate what a binary life might be like. Lydia, do you have those in front of you? Can you read them to us?
Those words that we had were things like black and white, light and darkness, good and evil, love and hate, blessings versus curses, growing versus withering, happy versus sad, humility versus pride, day versus night, win versus lose, truth versus lies, sacred versus profane, life versus death.
So it would be nice if life were so simple that it would be binary and we could put things into one camp or the other, that they were always wrong or right. That's not the way that the world operates. It's not the way that psychology operates. It's certainly not the way that our social interactions operate. It's much more
Right.
confusing than that and much more complex. And it's probably good that it is. But something interesting happens when you take this same list of words. I'm going to read it again, but you try to put in a middle term, a halfway point. Not all of these have a good halfway point, which is kind of fascinating. But here's the same list of words: white, gray, black, light, semi-darkness, darkness. Or you could say semi-light, darkness. Good, adiaphorus, evil. Now, I didn't make that word up, honest. I had to look it up because I did not know what it was. But the idea of adiaphorus means neither good nor evil, somewhere in the middle. But good, adiaphorus, evil. Love, indifferent, hate. Bless, ignore, curse. Grow, homeostasis, wither. Homeostasis meaning staying the same state. Homeostame, stasis, state, right? Same, staying the same. Grow, homeostasis, wither. Happy, numb, sad. Humility, pride. Now, I don't have a middle term for that. Maybe you do. But I was trying to think, what's between humility and pride? You're either humble or you're not. I kind of
Maybe a
joke it's
humble
like
brag.
I kind of joke it's like being pregnant. You either are or you ain't. There's no middle ground.
Right. Yeah.
Okay, here's another one. Day, twilight, night. No, we're not talking about vampires and werewolves. We're talking about day, twilight, night. Um, win, tie, or lose. Win, lose, or draw, right? So there is something between winning and losing. It's called a tie. Here's one. Truth, lies. I'm sorry. I have no middle term for that. I don't believe there's such a thing as a white lie or a partial truth. I believe there are only truth and lies. And you might think that's too binary. Well, we could talk about that. Sacred, profane. There's nothing between those either. Not that I can come up with. Life, death. Again, you're either alive or you're dead. I mean, what are you going to be, a zombie? Right? The living dead? That's make believe. It's not real. Now, you may feel like a zombie, and I guarantee you, I see zombies walking around sometimes. These are people that they've missed out on life to the point that they're like the living dead. But the reality is they're still alive. They still have a chance, right? But I
Right.
think by throwing in
Yeah.
the middle words, we begin to see that life isn't binary. And so when we start talking about ways of life versus ways of death, maybe it's a little bit more complex than that, or maybe it's hard to sort out, difficult to ascertain. What is a way of life versus a way of death? Especially because we know there's a lot of confusion and deception out there, but it's still binary in a lot of ways. So I have found this paradigm to be really, really helpful for me in life, because when I'm trying to make a decision, do I do this? Should I do that? What would be good? What's not? Even when it's something small, I can think about it and I can say, well, is that life-giving? Is it healthy? And that tells me a lot if I can confirm, oh yeah, it is. That is healthy. That is life-giving. That's going to make things better.
Right. Yeah.
Or is it a way of death? Meaning it might feel attractive and fun, but where does it ultimately wind up?
Right.
Life can be confusing. I think what we should do, Lydia, is probably take a break here. We have so much more to say, and I know it's kind of a cliffhanger, but in the next episode, we can dive into what this really means. And in way of a preview, we're going to be talking about more deception, situational ethics, what a life of death really, or not a life of death, the ways of death. I keep saying that the ways of death really are. So that's what we'll cover in the next episode, and I think it's going to be really, really valuable. But I think what we covered today is enough to ponder for a while. So maybe we should wrap it up there.
Yeah, that sounds great. Well, as always, we love you guys. We're excited to come out with a part 2 on this episode. We hope that it gave you some food for thought.
Yeah, we love you guys. Until next time, take care.